All right, welcome back to another video. In the last video, we spent some time getting form validation working and making it all pretty, and adding some individual field validation as well as some kind of overall form validation on the front end. In this video, we're going to spend some time getting some validation set up on the back end so that if you have more complex validation that you'd like to handle on the back end, you can add that and then return it to the front end. So if we just look at this form, you can click create. Right now we have validation, the custom validation we did last time, where if you use high school, it just says like, that's a disaster, you can't do that, which isn't very helpful, but the functionality is working. So next, we're going to go into the back end. So I think the validation example I'm going to do is maybe something like the Caribou can only have, like each district can only have 10 schools or something. And we already have like 15, so we've definitely already kind of skipped this validation, but now it will just get called every single time. To do that, we're going back into the backend code. If we just take a peek at what we have so far, I'm going to close all this. So, and I've probably covered this in the past with kind of like the easiest way to get Django REST framework set up with endpoints is we've been using these model serializers and these model view sets, which take a model and then with a few parameters, it pretty much says, like it creates all of the endpoints you need. So you can like get one, get all, patch, put, post, delete, etc. The serializer's responsibility is to format and validate data, while the view's responsibility is to do things and modify data, is maybe an okay way of describing them. So with that said, we'd want to put our validation in our serializer, which is what we're going to do. We have our model serializer here. I was doing a bit of reading because I've done this a few different ways in the past. And if you go to the Django REST framework documentation, they recommend that you create this validate method inside your serializer to do any like generic validation. So that's what we're going to do. And then if it all succeeds, we return the data. Otherwise, we're going to be raising validation errors. A serializer validation error. I'm actually going to say from REST framework serializers import validation error just because it's a little bit shorter in the code and you'll be doing that a lot. But what I want to do is say, so when you're creating a school, I believe, so one thing with model serializers is they already have validation based off the model. That's why they're a model serializer. Districts cannot be null. A school requires a district, so we can assume that that validation is already done. So if we do something like, let me just double check. If we do something like, and actually district ID is the field we're using for creations, right? So this is right only true, required true. Now we know that it's going to be required, so we can just do data.district ID. And then what we can do is, and this might, we'll have to see if this is a smart way of doing this, but the district itself that we want should have that ID. And what we could also maybe do instead is we want to say a district can only have more or less than 10 schools. So we could do school objects filter where the district underscore ID equals the district ID, and we can count those. We can say number schools in district, really verbose name, but that's okay. And then if the number of schools in the district is greater than 10, we can raise a validation error which says districts can have a maximum of 10 schools. Greater than or equal to is what we want, actually. There we are. So now if we run a create, let's see what happens. We're going to use a different category so it works. So we click create, and I bet you we got a validation error. Yeah, so 400. Response, districts can have a maximum of 10 schools. Perfect. So we get that error from the backend, and now we need like an elegant way of taking errors from the backend that should be displayed to the user and displaying them. Non-field errors. Okay. So if we go back to our create school form, here's where we do that submit, and here's where that error is. So if we console log error data, errors of type unknown. Let's see, TypeScript, axios, exception type. Okay. We also need to import, we're going to move this into a method, but for now we'll import axios error from axios. Oh, we'll also need to import axios itself. We could also move this into an interceptor for, like we have our schools API. We can make an interceptor for this, and we might. Okay, so now let's console log error dot data message. I don't know what a standard error would be. Help. All right, let's see what we get. Import and export may only appear at the top level. Did I? What did I do? Oh, I'm missing a curly brace here. Where's it getting error from in that example? Yeah, there's this guy made a little middleware. Optionally use ds-ignore for simple paths. A lot of discussion on this, actually. you don't actually need that. Okay. Axios error is defined but never used. I'm pretty sure I'm still. Oh, no, I'm just literally saying if it is that type. Okay. Okay, refresh. I forget even why we were doing that. Test. Oh, you're going to see what we can in console log. We click create. Our console log says request failed with status 400, which is not what. I wonder if Django REST framework response error type. Do they have like a definition of what their responses might look like? I'm also console logging message, and there's also response. I think that's actually what I want. There we go. Response.data, and then we get into our non-field errors. Okay, click create again. There's our array of errors. Oops. Sorry, buddy. So now with those errors, we want to essentially set the error message, right? And one way we could do this is we could just say like take the first error and tell the user that there's one error. But at some point, we're definitely going to want to give them the full set of errors that we might have. That works pretty nice though. I'm just wrapping this in a div so that the button stays on the right, even when there's no error message. Okay. I mean, that isn't bad. I don't want to like over-engineer this before we have examples where there might be more errors or different errors at the same time. So for now, I'm going to leave it, and we'll eventually come back to a point where you may get like a list of errors of what went wrong. Because I'm pretty sure also like if we raised another error here, we just say like if true, and then we say another one. I'm pretty sure only one of these is going to get raised. Yeah, so like you're just raising the first error. I don't know how you get a list of errors or what Django does to do that. But what we can do is let's actually create a handler for exceptions. We go to our plugins, we go to Axios. Const get like user error, or yeah, get user error. That's not quite right. We want to get the error that's for the user, right? And we're going to pass it the error, which is of type axios error. Well, actually, maybe not. Let's assume that we don't know the type, and then we can do that same if statement. Missing return type. The return type on this is, it's going to be a string because we're going to be returning an error message. So if the non-field errors has a length greater than 0, we're just going to return an error. If otherwise, if that isn't an axios error, we're just going to say like something went wrong. And we can just take this out of the else. Error implicitly has any type. So this is where we could say error or axios error. Just import from here. And then I think that, wait, does it just know what error it is now? Weird. Okay. I don't know why it wasn't doing that before. Get school API error message. Yeah. Sure, let's roll with that. So now we can put all of this in here. And we can say set error message to that with the error passed in. We're going to say this is error or axios error. Axios error is undefined again. Defined but never used. Why does it not complain? It's so bizarre. There was someone like who was doing something where they were defining their own type. I wonder, can you just say it's going to be an axios error? Because that is always what it's going to be, right? Question mark. Defined but never used. It's used right here. Oh wait, did you import that from types? I might be importing it from the wrong spot. No, what? One thing to note is the reason we're getting the error message and then allowing the component to handle it is if we make other requests, like get requests that are failing and they're getting error messages, we might want to do something else. Like might not be setting a state value. We might be, I don't know, doing something else with the error. So this allows you to use this utility for always getting the error message, and then later on you can decide what you want to do with it. Still not happy with these types though. Okay, this is expecting. What if we just do unknown? There. Now we can say if it's an axios error, handle it this way. If we don't know what the hell it is, do this. And later on, when we have more types or we run into more issues, we can fix that up. So let's remove that axios, import. Now if we create a school and we click create, we get that error message there. Perfect. And in terms of like our create school logic, it's pretty clean. Like when you're making a request, if there's an error, you can get the API error message. You can likely make this into an interceptor since like we're sort of duplicating the fact that this is a school API here. So you could likely make an interceptor that just gets the first message. I'm going to leave it for now. And get rid of that. I think we do a response. Axios response response. Is that right? I think that's how you do the. Let's see. Axios response interceptor. Let's take a look at it. I'm kind of curious. I would just need the type. Axios response. Just duplicated it there. Okay, so now if the response is an error, we want to do something. No longer need the types, interceptors. Yeah, the thing is the interceptor should return the full error, and if you're just returning the first message, then that, like, I don't think that's Axios's job. That feels really strange to me, so we're gonna leave it as is. And then in this, we're deciding to get the first error message, where in other places we might decide to get multiple messages. And if we wanted to, we could actually rename this, and we could call it like get first school API error message. It's super long. I'm going to remove the school API from this since that's all we're going to be using. But now we know that we're only getting the first error message, where if we wanted to change it, maybe we have a method later that's like get all of them and combine them into a nice little component. Okay, now, so that's sort of like an example of API, how you might do API error handling. We'll do more in the future for sure. The next thing I'd like to do is when you created a row, I'd like to briefly highlight it in the table so you can say like, oh, here's the row you just created. Just like really brief. So to do that, first we need to be able to create schools again, which we can't because our error handling is way too tight. If we go into our shell, let's go into the terminal here. And I'm just going to go into the shell. From here, you can do from example or whatever you call your app, import the district app or the district model. We're going to create one with a name, Okanagan. Perfect. So now if we refresh, we create school, do an elementary school, and we do it in the Okanagan, we're not going to run into our backend validation. So it will create that school right there. Awesome. But now we want to highlight this for a brief moment, right? So let's see if ant_d offers anything for highlighting rows. I'm going to close all this. If I just search for highlights. Only one response. Okay, it doesn't, like, you can like highlight them. Oh, boy, what's this doing? It's for like filter selection. It's sending a highlight, but I think it's probably like whether the filter is active or not. Okay, let's do our own. So I think the way we're gonna do this is the schools. Oh no, that's the serializer. The school table. Let's see, where's this data from again? Our data source is schools, which is coming from props up here. Okay, so when we insert new data, we hide the form, we get our schools list and remove any school that matches the name, and then we re-add the school to the list, and then set schools. I think what I'm going to do is we're just going to have an array of highlighted rows. I'm not sure what value I'm going to use to do this yet. If we did, we could just like put in the whole school object. Const highlight a row. We're going to highlight it for like a short period of time. But if we pass in the row, which is of type school, and we say set highlighted rows, what's the proper way to React add value to use state array? There's a proper way to do this. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so when all this happens, we're also going to call highlight row, missing return type in, function main, this returns nothing. So now what we need to do is we need to take these highlighted rows and we need to pass them into our school table. So over here, we need to say that we're going to get a highlighted rows prop, which is the same prop as the schools. Yeah, and I'm so surprised that AntD doesn't have like a highlight. Maybe they're calling it something different. Filters. It's so funny. Maybe this like isn't the thing to do. They're not even supporting it. But I feel like it's kind of nice when you're using a table and it's like just like another little flair, like, hey, your item is there. Especially when you're adding data and you're not sure if it works or not. You just kind of want that additional feedback. But control filter value, no color, selected. And table, this is an ND component. So we need like a new prop on the ND component. Ooh, I don't want to do that if we have to. You could make it like selected rows. You know, I'm just gonna see what this looks like, just for fun. Wait, selected rows, not on. Oh, it's on row selection. Properties of row selection. Set props per row. Hmm. All right, I think I'm gonna like stop this video here, spend some time researching, and we'll jump right back into this in the next one. Feel free to cruise around yourself, but what we're trying to do is after you add a row, we want to briefly highlight it in the table so that you just have a little bit more feedback that the row was added. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I'll see you in the next one.